Let's get some drums down here. Therefore, I prefer, guess what? The Simpler, my tool, my favorite tool. Yeah, it's easy for like single instruments and especially percussions or drums. It's just amazing because it has so many functions. I'm here, like I'm just using like not even 5%. I could even use like a drum rack, which is just the combination of a few simplers. So it has like one channel then, and all the single simplers are in one window, and I can build a complex groove. This is not so necessary when it comes to melodic techno, I think, because there are not so many drums and percussion channels anyway. It's more if you have like really complex rhythms like breakbeat or whatever, then it's useful to see what the elements are doing and how they relate to each other. I prefer to have all elements, all like snare, hi-hat on single stems on their own channels, so I can mix them and I can treat them with FX, and yeah, this is the easiest. So I start with a snare drum. I prepared already a snare drum which might fit, so I do not have, I think this one was good. No, this is better. To not take you on a long way through my sample libraries. That would be very boring. And you know how it is. Sometimes it takes time then. We would like to focus on making a remix and not on finding the right snare drum. So I prepared it for you. Easy, small loop. You can hear the snare is a bit laid back. This is because of the sample. You can see it here. This is sometimes nice when the snare starts a bit late. Then I'm just adjusting it. I like this. I'm kind of like, would call it like pre-roll. Sometimes it's cool to have like a bit of shuffle in between them, to one is a bit later than the other. It's nice like this. I would not make too much voodoo here. Anyway, melodic techno is a very straight genre, I think. A little bit. So snare done. I will name channel snare. Just create another simpler to have some hi-hats, I guess. Here I prepared some very simple hi-hats. These are from my own collection. I recorded them from my MFB 522. Let's make a little loop as well. 2 bars. And there are shortcuts for everything. So even like there's a shortcut for like creating a new clip. It's very useful to learn all the short clips. In my case, I have most of the time one hand on my keyboard, and so I have to do everything with the right hand with the mouse. So I do not use every shortcut because of my special workflow. There is no right or wrong. I just would always recommend to see what shortcuts are useful for you, because once you learn them, you have like your muscle memory, then you're working very fast. It could be very useful. Okay. Hi-hat. This seems very high, but let's see. Yeah, I'm a bit too lazy to do it. 2 bars. Because a little bit of movement here with the velocity is quite nice. Not too much, because the jungle is pretty straight. I would not do too much funkiness. I think this more belongs to other styles, even other tempos sometimes, because I think the slower music is the more cool is this groove. And yeah, I like it here very tight. But we have the possibility to use the decay. And I like to synchronize elements with each other. So why not taking the envelope from the serum to the decay of the hi-hat? So we have movement, but this is not just another rhythm. It is exactly the same figure what the serum is doing on the bass sound. And I think this could be very cool. This is a very short hi-hat, maybe. Longer one. You hear that? The hi-hat, the decay is following the cut off, how it opens and closes from the serum. So they do it together. So it's not becoming messy. It's becoming one rhythm. Yeah. And I think this principle is very good to have a couple of times. So this is like you have like an orchestra and there are always like a few instruments playing together and I'm playing against or different rhythms. They are always fitting together. And if they're not fitting together, then they have a very specific way of playing against or whatever, then they're more like communicating. But I saw it so many times and in arrangements that there are a lot of different grooves, a lot of different groove quantizations, a lot of different like rhythm figures playing together, and it always becomes a little bit messy. So I'm always very happy when things are coming together that way. And I think we will do this later on with other elements as well. So this is for now. Very dry hi-hat and a very dry snare so far, but okay, we are in the arrangement mode. We will definitely not have the snare and the hi-hat after the break, so I have it from the beginning now, and I feel like I will just name it. It's the closed hi-hat here. We'll create another simpler, and then we'll have some kind of off hi-hat. That would work. It's from the same family, but I remember I had something else here prepared. It's this one, because it has a little bit like the frequency spectrum is more white on that sound. The closed one is very like thingy, and yeah, I would like to create just a simple off sequence here. That's a lot of low end. These are ghost notes, notes which should like just slightly be listenable and noticeable. I think they're still very loud, and so I need to change the velocity volume percentage. If it's on 100%, then it's the maximum distance between super low level on the velocity. So at velocity 1 is very, very, very low level. And if it's on 0, then there's no difference. See? So I can make it a bit shifty. It is way too loud. The signal is already sounding stereo. I would like to have it even a bit more stereo. Usually I would pitch it, and I would not pitch it, I would use the utility, I would widen it, and like here. yeah, I had the feeling that I can do it with a delay more elegant, and I want to show you how you can use a delay just as some kind of stereo tool. So if you're detaching those two things, those two channels, then you can say 100% dry and wet. You can say, okay, one delay on one side, the signal is delayed by a certain amount. So this is spreading the signal and some kind of like stereo impression is appearing. And this is what I wanted. The main hi-hat, like the closed one in the middle, and the more shakerish in the middle. We are pretty far away from mix down, still in this arrangement mode, and now putting together just a few percussions. We have snare, we have hi-hat, we have some kind of like shaker. I think this for now, this is enough, but we can here make a little addition, which is really nice, and it's well known, it's no secret, and some of you might know. We will use a vocoder in a return channel, and you will see this will add some spice on the high end of the hi-hat. See? And I will add it to both, and then I can use it overall to change the release time. And can create some, you know, some movement here as well. And the markers I have done here, they help me now to see where I have to go with ups and downs and whatever. So I can kind of like arrange a few things just kind of blind, you know, without listening. Not blind, but without listening, just with my eyes. Actually the opposite of blind. This little useless. Yeah, you see the principle. That's cool. And I can not just use the release time in the vocoder to do some accents here. I will use it as well when I'm changing a little bit of the decay here, and then adding a little bit of vocoder. So I'm sending a bit more. And what you see here, I created my own white noise. So I do not need to go into my sample library to find white noise if I need it. I can create it myself. And this is like all the other things I've done. I'm using the material, what I have, and shape everything out of it. So I'm staying in my hood. And yeah, this always turns out as very good way to do things, not to have like a million strangers in my arrangement sounding all slightly slightly different. So I can just recommend to do this and use less samples and try to shape things on your own. Yeah, I think this is pretty clear now. I have some drums. The next step would be to focus on the drop and the break. So first thing to do is to exchange the kick drum. I already put the PML folder here for like quick access, and we are using the PML volume 1 samples and loops package, and there are a lot of kick drums to pick here. I think are like 140 or something. Very good, well sounding kick drums in a lot of different types and for usage in different genres as well. Basically, I am just switching off my kick drum here. I'd like to deactivate the clip, and then going through it to have like a first impression. And I would like to save you some time. I already picked a kick drum which is sounding similar to what I had before and even a little bit better. This is a kick drum number 14, so easily I am just exchanging the kick drum here and reactivating the clip. Already sounding quite good. I need to change maybe the pitch a little bit. This is what I even haven't done when I was putting together everything in the beginning. It's the same with like using splice samples. I try to be quick while I'm producing, to hold on to the creative decisions, to find the right chords and the bass line, and to like figure it out how the track sounds instead of losing myself on details like the kick drum tune, for example. But this is part of like, that's a bit mixing already, but this could be done later on. I found myself back in the days for weeks just figuring out the right kick drum, and then I lost like the fun on keep on working on a track. So I would always recommend to have fun in the beginning and do this detail work later on. Of course, a kick drum needs to be kind of near to the result, otherwise the track would not work. You can't have like a deep house kick drum on a gabba track that would work, but it does not need to be 100%. Don't make yourself a hard time having everything perfect sounding in the early stage of the production process. So we exchanged the kick drum here. I will use a tuner now to make this a little bit more precise. I'm kind of aiming for like an F-sharp kick drum, which is on the same note as the bass. I need to make sure that the tail of the kick drum is not too long and distracting the note. Otherwise, I would need to change to another note, which is part of the harmonic spectrum for the kick drum. But I think the original one was close to F-sharp and was already sounding quite good. The final listening things, I trust my ears, not just the gear. They can hear it's already close. But here it's displaying a G and a G sharp, and A would fit, like a G sharp would fit as well. It's part of the harmonic spectrum of the track, but I'm looking for the F sharp, and so I will just tune it down. Tune it up to see what happens. One semitone and then a kick drum is mostly not like one tone. There's like a tone within the tone, so it has like a curve. It makes boom, boom. It comes from up and goes down. So the tuner is never showing you like one precise tone. So you will need to find a middle between trusting your ears and what the tuner is saying, It gives you an idea. It's not giving you like a super precise measurement here. That sounds quite good for me. Seems alright for now. I can use like here the decay and the sustain and the release, of course, to shape the body of the kick drum. I don't want to have it too long here because the bass drum is pretty there and it's on the same tone. I don't want to distract them. I will use sidechain compression on this as well, so I can duck the bass when the kick comes in. So they're working together, and they're not like fighting each other. the final step I will do at the mixing stage. This is the first difference here. When I'm mixing it my own, I will have access to the simpler to set the lengths and the whole shape of the kick drum still. When I'm sending stems, like bounced stems, to the mixing engineer, I would need to have made my decision for the shape of the kick drum already. I leave this for later to make this detail work a little later. My aim here was to exchange the kick drum for now. And now I'm having a look on the snare drum, which I took here from a third party. To name it, it was Splice, and I will exchange it with a PML snare drum. And I do the same here. I have prepared the folder here. We go and look for a snare drum. The snare drum is, I picked myself before as well to save you some time going through really a lot of snare drums provided here. And this sometimes can take like 15 minutes and you do not need to witness this here right now. So I picked snare drum 33. Which I found might fit. So I'm just to drag it in. As far as I remember, I had before a snare drum which had a little bit gap here in the beginning. So I was moving the snare drum a little bit, and I need to fix this because this snare drum starts precisely on the first hit here. So I will just consolidate this whole thing, the loop, and then I will see here that the snare drum, see here, there's a little shift, and I will just quantize it. A snare drum could be a bit shifty, like depending on the groove and everything. For that track, I want to have it pretty, on point on the 2 and on the 4th note. Quantizing it. I have quantizing settings here, 100% amount. That means I can quantize it to like 80% preciseness or like 100%. I want 100%. Snare drum already fitting quite well. The other kick drum was sounding very loud, and when I was listening back at home on my couch on my other headphones, I found it was too much, and it was anyway my plan to exchange the snare drum here. So finally I will exchange the open hi-hat. Same process here. I will have a look on this open hi-hat folder, and I picked the open hi-hat number 6. Yeah, and same here. Yeah, I have a little gap in the beginning. I will play around with this, make it more tight. I had switched on the delay here. This was to make it stereo. So I have a left and right, and then made a little delay on just the right side. So I have this difference, and I'm creating a stereo effects. Switching it off and on. I like this, and my idea was to have like the closed hi-hat in the middle and the open hi-hat in the sides. One note on the hi-hat, on the closed hi-hat. The closed hi-hat will stay in the package because they are part of my own collections I recorded. I recorded there for the MFB 522, and I will provide this as a little gift to you, and it will be part of the package. I'm not exchanging it. As you remember, I did movements here on the DK, as far as I remember. You see here, following the movement on the serum baseline. So if I would exchange it with another sample, that whole aesthetic would change, and I was liking it, so I leave it over here. So I have exchanged everything what I wanted and needed to exchange, and now I would like to do the little changes and little details I found to sometimes a little bit incomplete when it comes to the kick drum, because the kick drum was pretty straight all the time, and I like it when we have sometimes some variations going on. I would like to show you this. Right before something happens, there could be a little intro to that. So like you know this, like it has like a double hit on the kick drum. And this is what I'm doing on the final stage when producing. I'm adding those little details. So in this case, I'm just consolidating this little part here. And then I'm just doubling one kick drum here. There's one kick on the off. And in this case, nothing happens because I have switched the speaker off. Just creating my little... There, we have this little thing. Makes things a little bit more interesting. It's introducing a change. I like to do this a lot, actually. Not in any case, I'm doing it on, off, sometimes here and there. The more variation you have, the better and more interesting your track sounds. There's no right or wrong when it comes to this, but sometimes you want to make some, some markers in your track when you want to say, there's something coming, where you want to say like, hey, attention, something is happening, and therefore you add little details. If it's a riser, it's the same principle, or if you do like these snare drum variations, what we did here, they are telling in the end before the big break comes. The more changes and variations coming in, it starts creating the feeling of something is changing, When the normality, when everything is working on the same principles for the while and new things coming in, it is introducing change, and you can build up things and you can build up an expectation while doing these changes. Those kick drum doublers are very small like changes, but they create a certain feeling on a very subtle way. So that's why I'm thinking it's important to speak about this and to add those little things in the end. When I forgot to do it while I was producing the remix in the first hours. I mean, we did a very, very quick shot here on the remix. The whole remix took maybe like 6, 7, 8 hours, all included, even like breaks. So this is very, very fast. It's not always like this. It could sometimes take weeks, and the time in between to take a step back, to sleep on it, it's very good. And don't get crazy if something is not working out fast. You will get better while like training it, while exercising it, of course, but it happens to all of us that sometimes it takes a little bit more time. And when you're freaking out about it, that things are not going fast enough for you, that's not good. Just take it aside, maybe work on another track. This is the best way. So, and these details I would always recommend to do in the end, because these can take you time in this highly motivated process of creating. Sometimes you're like, wow, I love this pads and I love this feeling, and you're in that. But everything you can listen until a certain point of when it starts to be boring or your ears get like tired. So you will always have like a short time to make things happen. And then it's more important to do like the new things, like creating new chords and combinations instead of doing basics. Like these kick drum doublers are basic. Those snare drum things are basic. Maybe just make a marker here. This is the break. Then something needs to happen here when you're listening to it. You can write here, okay, something new needed when you feel like it. And then you can do it tomorrow, but not in this process when you're like hot in doing like, hey, I have a good idea for a lead and all this. Things making a track standing out and making the difference compared to other tracks. This is very, very important. That's why I'm here with you now in the very little ending, doing those little standards and little interesting things. So I will do the same like with the kick drum here later on as well. Of course, we can repeat this like all like, let's say 8 bars. So we would like take this as one clip here now. I'm consolidating with like Command J all the time. You see that here. So I make a 4-bar loop now. Here I was counting wrong, doing it like this. And then we make a loop out of it, easy. And then we will just double the final kick drum in this clip here. And then we can just open it. I think it's too much. I don't want it that much. I just wanted to show you how that could work. Some tracks, they could have like this kick doublers or variations every like 2 bars or 4 bars or whatever. Depends on the material. I would like to stay here as it is, and I will look here for other moments. It could be helpful here, especially after the drop. We have a part when the energy is quite high, but the hi-hats are still not in. And to have like a little introduction here, I my experience tells me that this might be a good moment when to add one of these kick doublers to make it introduced, you know? The kick drum, what I used here, I could hear it because it sounds a little bit laid back, has still like a gap here, which is a bit annoying. It should be very tight. I found the kick drum was still a bit too long. Fix that. But it's time, not now, to make this properly. As I told you, this is more like a mixing thing. So let's move on to stay with our motivation to final this track and not getting lost in details. We exchanged the hi-hat as well. I did like the panning on it. I found that the snare drum could have like a little bit snare room here, so I added like a snare room in the final stage. This needs to be revisited because it's a new snare now, and I found that it could be a little bit more. Or even less. The snare drum needs some compression right afterwards. Part of mixing as well. So let's go through the bass. We have a lot of like playing around moments here on the bass line, and when I was listening to it at home, which is always nice to listen in another environment than in a studio, somehow this is like affecting your ability to understand what's going on. If I'm sitting on the couch listening on headphones and via my laptop, I have another access to the track and I have another feeling. It's somehow magic in a way, but I would always recommend to listen to your own music in different occasions. Sometimes you're like, well, now I understand, now I got it, you know? And best case is you're listening to it in the club, because then you have like the real club environment, and this brings you like even in time feeling like emotional situations, a completely different view and the real view on it, because this music is basically made for clubs and dance floors. So I had the feeling that the serum, when the vocals are coming in, it is a bit like communicating, like, you know, answer request situation here. And I already had the bass quite low in animation here when the vocals are in, being very, very down now. Some dips. Answer. And I found there could be a few more movements here. And like this. So I am going through the whole channel like this to make some more of these changes. You know, you see here I just copied it, so this is like very the same. It is absolutely worth to go through it again and create more dynamic and more interesting thing. Every change, everything is nice, and it should be done in the end of the production process. Same with the kick details. So the next thing would be that I would like to underline the snare roll in the break. It is anyway time to review the break, because the break here was not so well crafted. I found, like, when I was listening back to it, it was missing some little more details, because I found that the lead was not sounding 100% full, and same with the snare drum here. The snare drum, which we already exchanged, is doing this repetition here, like this, like snare rolling, typical for this genre. It's coming in here slowly, controlled by the utility. And I had the feeling that this could have some more power and variation. And so I will send it to our reverb channel. Like, the reverb is on D, and I'm just adding an envelope which brings in snare drum anyway is not loud enough now. Like the new snare drum is in volume way less than the other one. Little envelope which is taking off the reverb because I want to have like a little dry moment here as well. This was too much, just in the very end. Oh, I was wrong because this is the utility envelope. I wanted to work on the... Yeah, mistakes are happening. Bending this out. Was just pushing the utility and the level. This was not what I wanted to do. So that's nice, a little detail. It was dry before. I was just adding a little bit more power and drama to this moment. And this is what I'm doing through all these things here. I'm becoming more detailed now. I'm putting my focus on those little things to make it sounding perfect in the end. Same here with the lead. I mentioned it. I have the lead is made of like 2 instruments and it could be made of like 5. I took just 2 because I want to make sure that everyone at home can build it and not crashing the CPU because of their too much elements here. I think 2, like the serum and the wavetable could work for most of you. So, and we can create something sounding fat and full with just 2 elements. But the wavetable sounded a bit too like thinny in my opinion. So let's try to make it sounding a little bit more full. And therefore I love, and not just therefore, I love to use the overdrive as one of my favorite Ableton plugins because it is basically a EQ but more strong because you're not just amping, so you're like pushing certain frequencies, you're overdriving them, so you can bring in more character to the transients on a certain frequency range. This is when you move it like here to the left and right, you see that like the hertz is changing, so you can say please push, like gain up certain hertz and give it a drive here, like the drive, like there was a guitar pedal, like a drive, like crash it, make it sounding more driven or overdrived. It's way more than saturation. It's really, destroying it a little bit, but this could have a very nice effect on the transients, and I would show you. Without, I need to just this, without. This is what I said, it sounds a bit too thin, and just adding the overdrive, and this is like maximum a lot. Using a little bit like the release as well. Even here there is no right or wrong, just try around and see what is happening. The tone here gives you like the decision more high frequencies or less high frequencies basically. And I like to use the drive a lot and then just use use it on a very big frequency range here, and just a little, but full drive, so it's filling up the whole signal. Not too much. And then have a listen. Reducing the level a little bit because it became louder overall. My vision's always clear when I feel close to me. It starts singing. The signal before was, yeah, a little bit shy, I would say, but now with this like slightly destroyed touch, it sounds more interesting. And I do not need to add another synthesizer. I just have the same, just with a little effects, and you're saving CPU power. I would always recommend to work with what you have instead of adding and adding and adding new elements. I think we can do some more here. We need to check if the wavetable is sounding later on. It's playing a different figure here. Like this, dun, 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 dun. And that it's still cool with... You can hear it. Even here it gives nice character and a nice addition to what we had. So the lead, the main lead, I would say this is like the serum one. We were just like editing the wavetable, which is like the on top signal, which gives us distorted addition here. I thought could have a little bit more on this echo we have run on it. On this channel here, you remember when we did it before, what we can do here, we can animate as well the echo in the send channel. So I go to the send channel, then I pick the echo, then I'm looking here for the feedback. I love to like work with the feedback when it comes to those build-ups. So here I did this marker like rise. So the rise is starting here. So I will just this is too much, just a little bit. And I found that it might be nice here. Not here, before it ends. I'm a little bit goofy today. Just raising the feedback here a bit. Move it a little bit. Movement is the key. So I want to build a bridge from that part when it goes into that rhythm figure. I'm soloing it in case you're not really noticing it. You hear this echo, it's the feedback, it's getting longer, it's extending it, creating more room, more space in those silent moments. It's a bit too much at that point, but I wanted to show you what is happening. The wavetable at this moment is a bit too open, and I would as well, I did this here, like I changed the release a little bit, so I will animate the release as well here because I want to have it more short. So I just like grabbed it here so it appears here, the release. So I will turn it down a little. Yeah, see. As well here, remember I took the lead sound, which is built like as a long instrument, long sounding instrument, and I turned it into a more short, attacky rhythm instrument later on. Instead of having two instruments, I turned one instrument into the other instrument. It's saving at CPU and it always sounds somehow like consistent and it's always nice. So, but this needs that I'm like changing the parameters. So I'm changing the release, for example, from the wavetable as like an open release sounding long paddy sound into a short attacky sound. And yeah, that's what happened. Well, like a final step here would be, before we will have a look into the mixing, that we will just delete elements we do not need. We still had like 3 parts here. We will delete. We have 3 parts here. We will delete. This is original song, the white one. I will keep that. But to have a better overview, I have this here. Normally, you would export those stems now and send them to the mixing engineer. But as I am my own mixing engineer and I'm working on my own project, I have the project. And in the next step, I will go through all the stems again and try to make them sounding even a little better and preparing them perfectly for the mastering. Okay, next step is mixing. And as I mentioned, we have the opportunity here that we can use the arrangement instead of just the audio stems, which the mixing engineer has normally to work with. So we are able to change little parameters, whatever, when we feel like. So let's start with the kick drum here. The kick drum, we exchanged it. It sounds already quite good. We always need to be aware of the fact that some samples, or most of the samples like presented in sample libraries, are already processed. That means they might have a compression on, EQing on, and stuff like this. So we need to know that, because sometimes if we put another compression on or another EQing or whatever, we might destroy them in a way, make them too flat or whatever. So use the ear, how they sound already. This kick drum in this case already sounds pretty fat and produced. The thing is, when I'm using my drum machine here, then I need to do a lot of compression and EQing on top of this. But this is like a pure kick drum, comes out of the synthesizer. We are using sample libraries. This is different, and I'm aware of that, so I don't touch it for now. I'm more having a look on the serum, the bassline, because I found it might be a bit too loud. So I put an EQ on it here already with a low cut. When it comes to when to cut low end, there is not really a right or wrong. We can say under 20 Hertz, there's not really a usage in our field of music. So in the club, mostly you can't hear like minus 20 Hertz. You can just feel everything which is around like 20 Hertz. And the more low end you have, which is like doing stuff there, it's taking energy of the whole mix. Overall, we can say the more low end you have in a track, the less loud it sounds. And we always need in melodic techno, it needs to sound loud to be in a comparison to other tracks not sounding less good, because less loudness sounds less quality. This is like, yeah, normality for us, even if it's not really true, but we want to have it loud. And when you're DJing one track to each other and one track is less loud, it was like, what? Well, it's not good produced. You have the feeling about this. So the aim always is to make things loud, and this is leading us to reduce bass. And even if it hurts somehow, and even some people say, don't do that. Yeah, we should do that. Here is the question, should we start from 20 Hertz or should we already start from 60 Hertz? This is up to taste and theory and things. When I'm sending mix downs to the mastering engineer, mostly they take bass still off my mix downs, but my mastering engineer is used to that. So I think I'm going good with this. In the end, it depends on your keynote and on everything else where you cut. I did a cut here at 30 Hertz to clean this a little bit up. I had the feeling as well that the serum sounds a little bit too long. So the kick drum and the bass having sometimes some conflicts. So I'm using a compression here, a compression set on a release, which is related to my song tempo. There are a lot of like calculators in the internet you can use and type in your milliseconds and can translate it to a certain tempo, BPM, whatever. So in the case of 125 BPM, I can pick 240, 480 milliseconds, 120, 60 and 30. And I already, sometimes I'm doing like triplets. That would mean in my case with 125 BPM that I can use 160 milliseconds. This is all because of mathematics, because when you have a groove, the release or your elements should be aligned to that. If they're like not perfectly on the beat, then stuff could sound a little bit loose. And so this is always good to pay attention to this. So I'm putting it to 120 now and see what's going on, because 120 is half of 240. Of course, I need to send a signal, which is ducking, or let the compressor work. Always when the kick drum comes in here, picked from the kick drum channel, the compression starts to work and duck my sound material. I can hear through the EQ, which is the key signal. So I can switch this on and then just hear the key signal. So if I have it, you hear it. If it's now, it's the whole bass drum is used as the signal, and here it's more like the higher frequencies. So it ends up setting like the strength of the sidechain effect here. Switching to the traditional classic. I'm putting in the threshold. That means this is like the point when the compression starts to work, like the level. There's like the signal coming in, and then I say, okay, start working on that level, on that level. If you turn this down, you will see the gain reduction here in the middle starts to work. So I saw like many people having like a compression in the channel, and there was nothing happening. This is like here when the threshold is too high. You see there's nothing going on. Like the compressor here is doing nothing, so it's not necessary. So you need to set the threshold when the signal coming in is loud enough. You see now it starts doing a gain reduction. That means it starts to reduce the gain by a certain level displayed here. So if it's just a little bit, then it is just a little bit of ducking. Or if it's like this, it's a lot. We still have switched on the mode that we're just listening to the sidechain signal, the kick drum. We're switching it off, and then we will hear the bass line, of course. There's nearly no compression right now, no sidechain. Now we're turning it in. And now I can hear that the bass is starting to move. It is reducing the overall level, so I will need to push the output here or use the makeup. I prefer to use the out to set it up manually. Not that much. And then it's important to make an A-B, and just on the kick drum and the bass. With sidechain, without. Just listen on the super low end of the bass. Switch on, switch off, do a little bit more, switch on. The kick drum now goes through it. The bass seems a bit more, precise. This was the effect what I wanted to have. Important is that we're not losing level, so I'm comparing just the level of the bass now. Yeah, could have a little bit more. little bit attack adjustment here. And then see what we can do with the frequency and just stay with listening to the two most important channels, the kick drum and the bass here. I think it's fine for me now. It's a bit hard for me here just with headphones, because for this masterclass I need just work the headphones because of the microphone. I will have a listen on my monitors as well. It is possible to bring a good mixing just with headphones, especially with these ones, but yeah, for me it's never enough. I need my speakers I'm used to work with. So the next thing would be to make a group out of it, because I'm always putting the bass and the kick drum in one group, to compress them together, to merge them together, and therefore I call it like a bass group. And then I use a glue compressor to glue them together. The group compressor is basically just a compressor. It's just bringing a bit more character to it. That's why they call it like glue compressor, and it's just built for these kind of like work. Same here, the threshold gives the starting point and how strong the compression is going to happen. For that kind of glue, I leave attack and release like on 12 o'clock. Same with ratio, it's good. I don't want to have it too crazy. Playing around with the clip here a little bit to make it clipping a little bit, like, but naturally and good, and not like destroying it. Here the makeup is not automatic like the other compressor. This one is you use yourself, and this is the same as the output here. So you compensate the gain reduction, and so you bring it down and then you bring it up again. The compressed material bringing the sausage up again to the certain level. Comparing is always the winner here. Off. For my feeling, the serum has still too much low end going on. We'll review this. As the kick drum is not so super low here, I let the bass line follow this a little bit, so I'm reducing more, and then, you know, I'm ending up at this like 53 hertz or so, which is a lot for me, but when I'm working on 125 BPM in this genre, this could be good. A final check on the speakers would be nice here, but I leave it for now. I think it sounds proper, and the kick drum and the bass are working well together. So let's go on with the snare drum. I had the feeling this could definitely need some compression. We have the snare drum here, and my new snare drum has a little less high frequencies, and I wanted to a bit more slappy would be nice, and therefore I'm using overdrive as well, and just vary a little bit. Even like here 9% on dry and wet would make a little portion and a little difference. And then I have the feeling it could be more like fop, fop, and not like boof, boof, so long. It sounds very classic snare drum, but I want to have it a bit more EDM-ish. Make it a little bit shorter. You hear when I'm pushing, when the overdrive is pushing the high frequencies, then it's taking off, rolling off some lows as well. So this is a nice effect. It makes it sounding more clear, but you need to be aware of this. Even when you're putting it on like kick drums, it's reducing a little bit low end, but it's pushing the like higher lows then, just with switching it on the full frequency spectrum. So the reverb here could be Sounds a bit unsexy. Why not using a gate to make it more slappy? And where's the gate here? Yeah. See, the gate is the same. You set a threshold, and that means like from what level of incoming sound material it's starting to work. So you need to get the threshold down. And then you need to decide, okay, when the sound is allowed to go through, for how long it will stay. So there's a release as well, like all this like return parameters here is shaping the time when the signal comes through the gate allows us to go through, and then what then? For how long it should be there, for how fast it should go off, all this. And so I can shape a reverbed snare material here. This is like the gated snare we have in so many tracks now since the 80s. You see here, I can shape the snare drum on top of its basic waveform and make it especially sounding different in certain frequency ranges. So I want to push a little bit the highs and make it more present in my mix. And with hold, can decide for how long. I just want to have it looking over the other mids in the track. I want to stand the snare out just on the tops, not on the low end and stuff. So the overdrive is realizing that definition in the high frequency, sending it into the gate, and the reverb spectrum here is, there is like a high cut. I will cut this off and we'll do like a low cut instead to see what's going on. This is a little bit too much. Yeah. Don't cut. This is like the reverb here, the EQ. This is the incoming signal. So the low cut here is cutting the incoming. So it's cutting everything. But the diffusion EQ here is more, okay, what EQ is on the reverb effect. So if I'm taking off the low here, this is the same if I would have like an EQ, having like a whole EQ section here in front of this. This is too much. It's more used when you're using like a reverb in a send channel. But I'm always rolling off snare drums on a certain frequency, and so instead of using like an EQ, I'm using this here. Was quite nice here. Was nicer. And here with dry and wet I can set how much. Same here. There is no right or wrong. Figure it out yourself what you prefer here and compare it when you're listening to the whole mix done. Same with the release here. You can work with the numbers calculated, like 125, 240 milliseconds, 120, etc. So you have it synced up. (240 milliseconds, by the way, is 1/4 note related to 125 BPM. So let's call it a snare drum. Maybe a little bit less high precise here. By the way, pushing shift and moving makes it more precise when it comes to little changes. So after all, I would just give it a little bit of compression as well, maybe using the glue compressor here, even if it's more like to glue stems together. It brings some flavor sometimes. Using it before or after, it's depending on the result. Always skipping and see at what point in a track every element you're working on sounds good or not. Sometimes like the snare drum, you're using it in the beginning and you feel like, yeah, it's perfect. And then you like move to another point in a track where it's very busy and the snare drum is just going under and you can't hear it anymore. So always compare. Sometimes it's necessary to even change the level. So the snare drum is like -3 dB in the beginning and then a little bit louder later on. And these are the little things we have to think of. So the next step would be like to have a look on the hi-hats. I already had the idea to have like my hi-hat in the middle, the closed one, and the open hi-hat in the sides. So I had a little bit the feeling that the open hi-hat could have another shaker. And this is the thing, I'm mixing my own now, so I can add more things and it's okay. If it would be at the mixing engineers right now, he would not or she would not be willing to add another shaker for you, without charging more money here. But let us do this. Create just I duplicated the stem, looking in my sample library, PML. So, and then go into the shakers, and I need something which is, something like this, which is a lot of sound material, very strong and full. I want to underline as to the open hi-hat, which is pretty, I would call it a little bit still like thin. I want to have it more full. So as I duplicated this, I duplicated the effect, the stereo effect as well. I can just change here the sides. So that means that exactly the opposite is now represented on the other ear. So I have the shaker more dominating this side, because when I'm hearing a signal earlier than the other signal on one ear, this is creating the feeling of stereo. So if it comes here like 1 millisecond earlier, it sounds a little bit louder. It feels louder. So if I'm changing this now, so I have the shaker louder here and the hi-hat louder here. And so I'm using the whiteness here a little bit more effective. I can switch this off here. Switch it on again. Adjusting the length a little bit. And the starting point as well. I don't want this like sh, sh. I want it to have tsh, tsh more. And then I am creating a group, hi-hat group for now. And then once again, use overdrive as one of my favorite plugs besides the simpler, because I want this open hi-hat to have it a little bit lower on the frequencies than the other one, and even like the rest of the track, a bit damped. You know, this is like full. But this is the wrong channel. when I'm switching it on, it's taking off some highs and it's taking off the lows, but there are no lows right now. So, and it's peeling out the mids. Off. So I found this high frequencies a little bit annoying because other instruments are more interesting in that frequency band. And like the hi-hat, the closed hi-hat is standing over it, it's standing out. When you're using a lot of hi-hats, always decide what hi-hat is ruling what frequency range, and then it's better than they're all like crashing with each other and distracting each other and masking each other. So those two hi-hats, I will create another group. Which will I create? Hi-hat group will use a compression on it as well. Glue compressor is good. Clip on. Good. Let's see what we have. We have the vocals, of course. The vocals, this is like kind of like mandatory. I'm rolling them off at 60 Hertz. If there's any low end, I can check this with the EQ or with an analyzer, but I'm rolling them off because there's no important material. Same happens to these reversed vocals on that channel here. And then we are having a look on the leads. And they could have a little less volume. That was my feeling. Overall, they were a bit loud, especially from here. And there was this downer element here later. I think this could be in the same group in the end. I'm making groups because I like to glue them together and reduce everything into like a few stems, like maybe 8, 6, 5, whatever stems, and then put a little bit of compression on each stem to increase the loudness overall, to control everything a bit more, to make a few little sandwiches, not too crazy compression on it. And then when I'm bouncing them, it overall sounds a bit more controlled. I can use EQs on groups. All of these like steps, it's gluing the elements together. I would always recommend to make little packages like this. These are the bass stuff, this is the pad stuff, this is like the attack stuff, this is the vocals, and then you have a few groups, and then you have just a few elements working together. It's like visually and it's even like acoustically a good decision to do that. Like when it comes to stem mastering, it's exactly this. And so it helps you to organize and it helps you to make decisions. And yeah, the processing in each of these stems sounds even better and brings things more together in a nice way. So this is saying what I do with the leads here as well, and I decided to add the downer stem here as well. And then this wavetable seems to have the serum stands a little bit out in a few frequencies, like the low one, like here. The serum, which is like the main lead, could roll off anyways, like with the cow shelf here. There's no need for these low end here. See how it sounds in the break. As before. No. there's more use of it. Delete. Yeah, don't tell anyone, but I will use a glue and a little bit of drive as well. I mean, you can use the saturator here as well. There's such a nice, which is like just the little weak brother of the overdrive, basically. And because it has this same drive function, and there's a very nice preset, like a bit warmer, which makes like slightly overdriving it or saturating it. Soft clip. Making it louder. We don't want to have it louder. We just want to have it more saturated. So AB, set the output, and with the AB you hear what it is doing really. Reducing a little bit of lows, and there's a slightly transient push. Yeah, and it's too much. I'm not so used to it, so I'm using the overdrive and just making here like 1%, maybe 5. I have already an overdrive on the waveform, so it could be too much. It is too much, so we don't do it. So we're just compressing everything, gluing it together a little bit. With compression now. Without. Without. Yeah, there's a slight case of compression here. I like it. And I would come to the last thing. Oh no, wait, I haven't visited the pads here, and I found they could have like a little bit more volume. The pads are a bit without a group here right now. I leave them like this. I just wanted to add a little bit of compression, sidechain compression, like I did on the serum here as well. I'm copying it. I'm not making a new compressor. I'm using the same one with the same settings, because it's good if you have if you're using sidechain, it's good if you have a few ones, or you have stems or channels going into one channel and there's one sidechain in, because they should all work and in the same intensity somehow and the same rhythm, like the release time, so they make an overall bounce to the whole track. If you have different ones working in different release times, different attacks and stuff, this could happen a little mess within your track. So I just copied it. I'm just setting the threshold. Of course, it's just working when the kick drum is switched on, because I have a sidechain which is just working when the kick drum comes. I can create a kick drum channel which is constantly sending a signal. No, I don't want it. I just want the kick drum when it's there doing the job to it, because I don't like it if it's in the break, the pad goes woo, woo, woo. Not in this case. Setting the threshold here. Pushing the volume a little bit. And then the final one is, there was a little noise loop shaker I forgot here down there. That was sounding good so far. I just put it up and put it next. This wasn't hi-hat from the original. Just put it next to here in the hi-hat group. And for for the good organization. So, and now I have here all the riser stuff, and this is an unused channel. I'm grouping the riser as well, and I still have the compressor here. This is just a standard, because when the riser here, there's one. It's not even when the kick drum runs. This is just the standard. Then all my risers and like paddy elements gaining increasing energy, that when the kick drum comes, ducking them a little bit, because then, you know, the house starts to shake. So I'm having riser and pad groups all the time, and I like if they are like revealing and opening in the break, and when the kick drum comes in, they start to duck and everything becomes more rhythmic. That's why I did this here as well. Which has no effect yet, and I put the compressor somewhere in the wrong channel. No, it's right. It's on the pads now. Okay, I think that was it. I think the mix sounds good overall. I will do a little break and then I will revisit it once more, but I think most of the stuff is done. And we have a somehow cool remix. Yeah, now it's time to do the mastering when I finally bounce the track. I hope you liked it. I hope I could show you a few things, and I hope to see you soon again at one of these production music live classes. Take care, Rüder Hagelstein. I guess we are done here so far. The next step would be to compare the mixdown we did with other music. And this is to adjust our ears, because I was mixing now for some time. And before I start a mixing session, I'm listening to other music on my headphones, on my speakers, to like adjust my ears to how it should sound in the end. We have still the original track here within the arrangement, so we can compare it directly how it sounds. To make it comparable, of course, we need to gain stage them a little bit. If this is mastered, and it does not look like mastered here. It's called master, but you see there's still a lot of dynamic here. So I'm not expecting it to be very loud, sounding very loud. We have a master here, which is like -8, 8.1. You see here always, like if you move faders here, you see the measurements right in the button. Here it's like when I'm moving it here, you see -7, -8. We would like to have it on 0, even if it doesn't not really matter if it's like minus something, because it's digital for the bounce, but we would like to have it, yeah, like 0. It's better for like orientation. We have a utility with +70B here. I don't know why it was that. What's in the beginning? I just forgot why this is. I'm just deleting it because we would like to have nothing in our mastering channel before we bounce a pre-master file. Let's have a listen where we are right now. Okay, we are like a little bit in the red zone here. It's already very loud sounding mix down. That's good, even if it would not be bad if it's sounding less loud. What I would do now is like I'm just grabbing all faders, I'm turning them down by a little to create a little bit headroom here in the master. I do not want to have like any like reds here going on. There's this like -6 dB pre-master setting, which is still communicated. Sometimes I do not see any reasons why it should be -6, because the mastering can deal with anything. You should always try to be very loud when it comes to recording analog outboard gear, because then you have noise, and when you are pushing levels on digitally in your DAW, you always bring up noise. But as we are producing on 24 bits, and I would never recommend to reduce your level because someone is asking you to deliver -6. So you would actually lose quality in the end. I do it just over all the faders here to have some headroom, because I was over 0. This is not good. I just reduced it a little bit and we should be fine here. And now I'm checking the level of the original. Maybe I just take like a loud part here in the end. Yeah, checking the master here. So now switching. my mix down sounds a little bit louder. Maybe can, yeah, this is, the origin is not on 0 here. Comparing. And when I'm comparing, I am focusing on the low end. If I have the feeling there's way less bass on one version or there's much too much highs on the other version, and I'm comparing it to maybe detect some like unbalanced ranges. I think they sound pretty good together. I think you can mix them, DJ them, and make a transition, and it would not really have a big difference. So I'm leaving this. I thought like the hi-hats and the kicks and everything, it's okay. And you know, the aim of this remix was to make it sounding a little bit more full, to change the bass line and to change the leads as well a little bit, to make it sounding a little bit more progressive and full. And I think when I'm comparing them, this is the original, it sounds a bit fuller, it sounds a bit faster, you might say, and a bit less minimal. Actually, this was what I was aiming for. I'm quite happy with what turned out here. And yeah, now I'm ready to send it to the mastering. So I will do a bounce with 24 bits and 4041 kilohertz as my system settings are. Nothing in the master, and the mastering engineer would be happy. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you could learn something from this, and I inspired you to do some very interesting remixes, and we will see each other soon again for Production Music Live. Take care. Ciao. So I spent a little more work on the remix. I brought back the hi-hats after the drop, and so the snare. I did some small adjustments on levels. I did some more speaker on and off fun on the leads following those demo downer stem here. And yeah, I found another little hi-hat here called like noise loop in the original stem bundle. Brought back the vocals in the end. And yeah, I think it's kind of a fun remix here. And to summarize my work, when I started, I had the vision to work with the vocals. I did. I had the vision to change and add more stuff on the leads. I did that. I had the vision that I'm making it a little bit more progressive. I think I did that because the bass line is a little bit more, yeah, I would say sounding a little faster. And yeah, I'm quite happy with it. And I hope that you could take some ideas or inspirations or some knowledge with you out of this masterclass, which was about remixing.